Hello guys and welcome back to this new episode. So today we are going to talk about cannibalism, and specifically we are going to talk about 15 things that you guys might not know about cannibalism. So for animals it means saving resources, securing offspring, subduing rivals. For man it coincided with despair, cult of ancestors, perversion, or need. So right now we're gonna delve into the 15 curious facts on a subject that has complex biological and anthropological implications. Once considered exclusive to the usual suspects, so to speak, such as praying mantises or black widows, and limited mostly to conditions of severe stress or lack of nourishment, cannibalism has changed its face in recent years. Today, it is known that in the animal kingdom it is practiced by hundreds, perhaps thousands of species, and that it has many functions, often advantageous for the entire species. If the animal one, in biological terms, is not always bad, it is more difficult to understand cannibalism when it comes to man. So follow me in this journey where we are going to try to discover, to find out what's really going on with cannibalism. Chapter number 1. In the animal world, cannibalism follows precise rules. Immature animals are more preyed upon than adults. Females practice cannibalism more than males, and adults of many species do not recognize eggs or larvae as family members. For them, it is simply food. It increases if alternative forms of nourishment are in short supply, and is directly linked to the degree of overcrowding within a population. These general laws were identified in the 1990s for invertebrates and then extended to vertebrates. For mollusks, insects, arachnids, it is almost the norm. For instance, in the case of the mother of the species Amauropias ferox, we know that she let herself be devoured alive by her offspring in an extreme sacrifice to feed them. The newborns are too many and too big for the mother to provide for them differently. Chapter number 2. For fish, the absence of cannibalism is the real exception. Given the disproportionate number of eggs produced, their high nutritional level, and the size of the parents, millions of times larger than them, the brood constitutes an easy and immediately available food source for these animals. Chapter number 3. It is frequent among brothers. For birds, such as herons and vultures, cannibalism is often a survival strategy involving bloody fratricidal struggles. It is the lifeboat strategy. If the resources to save themselves are limited, only the strongest survive. It is more frequent when the mother lays asynchronous eggs, separated by a few days from each other. The older, stouter sibling takes advantage of its size to keep the food for itself. And if the parents can feed both, the bigger chick feeds on the smaller one. Chapter number 4. It's not only about relatives. Those described so far are examples of endocannibalism, eating members of one's own group or family. But the animal world is also teeming with examples of exocannibalism, when the attentions are directed to specimens outside one's family circle. Lions eat the cubs of rival males as a sign of power. After winning a fight, but also to end the lionesses' maternal investment in their offspring. Females will not go into heat as long as they have the litter, but they become immediately receptive to mating if they lose their little ones. Chapter number 5. It was Columbus to coin the term cannibal. Turning to human cannibalism, he was the explorer who made the name of cannibal. That is from a Caribbean tribe famous until it became synonymous with anthropophagists. He did it on his return from one of his trips to the New World to indicate the savage customs of the inhabitants of those lands, thus laying the theoretical foundations to justify the slaughter by the conquistadores. Chapter number 6. It does not know geographical distinctions nor historical periods. Eating one's fellow was once common in Europe as well. In fact, there are increasing reports of the remains of prehistoric men torn to pieces, shredded, stripped, and whose bone marrow was extracted by the hand of other men. Even the Neanderthals, who also buried their dead with real funeral rites, occasionally removed the meat from the bones of the dead to consume some parts. The dismemberment of corpses could be a particular procedure linked to symbolic rituals. Similar evidence has been reported also from archaeological sites with the bones of Homo erectus. Chapter number 7. Why eat another man? In the case of endocannibalism, that is, when one feeds on the bones or ashes of relatives, the aim was to prevent the virtues from being lost and to acquire their strength. In feeding on strangers, there would have been economic and dietary reasons. It would be better to eat the prisoners rather than die of starvation. Fortunately, with the transition from narrow economies of small bands or villages to state systems based on agriculture, fortunately, I was saying, there was also the possibility of producing greater surpluses of food. The protein requirement could therefore be satisfactory and satisfied by other foods. And above all, it was better to have the slave to produce the surplus to be sold rather than killing them and running out of labor. That is also the physiological implication. The urge to eat the other refers to incorporating him in order to possess him. And there's obviously a reference to sex here. Chapter number 8. Camouflaged as a sacrifice. An exception to this logic was perhaps made by the Aztecs, who, despite having a very sophisticated state apparatus, nevertheless practiced mass cannibalism. It is estimated that they sacrificed between 15,000 and 250,000 prisoners a year. Theirs would have been a food necessity. The fauna of present-day Mexico was too limited and small in size to supply animal proteins to an ever-growing population that periodically suffered a food crisis due to poor corn harvests. The Aztecs were unsuccessful in their attempts to domesticate large animals, and they had no ruminants or pigs. To deal with the situation, they would have institutionalized cannibalism with a religion that included continuous human sacrifices. Chapter number 9. It was only a legend. Many times throughout history, the reference to cannibalism has been used to discredit enemies and to justify their inhuman treatment. The conquistadores did it with the Aztecs. In the Codex Florentinus, the Spanish friar Bernardino de Sahagún argued that destroying the Aztecs was God's just punishment inflicted on those people thirsty for human blood. In 1511, the Spanish rulers established that the natives could be made slaves as they were soulless, so without a soul. Likewise, the Christians accused the Jews of cannibalism. The British did it with the Irish. The Germans and the French slandered each other, not to mention the belief that the communists ate children. Chapter number 10. It signed the end of some famous civilizations, precisely because it is the last resort available. It happened, for example, with the population who inhabited Easter Islands, 2,500 kilometers from South America. The first Polynesians who settled there had at their disposal fruit, firewood, palm trees to build canoes, and a sea full of fish. But they did not calculate that the island lost in the ocean had limited resources. Gradually, the trees decreased until the last palm was cut down. Without trees to build canoes, the fishing ended. Birds became extinct, and the only animal proteins were made up of a few rats, insects, amphibians, and of course humans. In short, cannibalism would have been the last resort before the disappearance of that civilization. Chapter number 11. Until the 18th century, it was also called custom of the sea, with a reference to the forced cannibalism practiced by the castaways to survive. Among these cases, the one that caused the most sensation was in 1816 that of a sinking French frigate Medusa, which forced 139 people on a raft for 13 days. Only 15 were recovered alive, surviving by eating the corpses of the traveling companions. The episode is remembered in the famous painting The Raft of the Medusa by Theodore Géricault. Chapter number 12. Humans. How did they cook humans? The ancients boiled human flesh by throwing hot stones into the water. The cannibals of New Guinea preferred baking them instead. The Tupinamba of Brazil had several alternatives: smoking, roasting, boiling, according to the cuts of the meat. The Mayoruma, still in Brazil, prepared the brain with chili, and the Tupinamba used aromatic herbs. The Aztecs prefer stew flavored with chopped pepper, tomatoes, and lilies. Chapter number 13. A plate for a king. Chinese millennial history would be dotted with examples of human body parts used as a cooking ingredient. Far from being resources for troubled times, the main dishes were, according to various historical testimonies, an exotic delight prepared for royal hierarchies or high societies. But what does human flesh taste like? According to the American anthropologist Tobias Scheinbaum, it is sweet. For others, it would taste like chicken. Chapter number 14. It is not without side effects. Apart from flavor, feeding on their own fellows also has dangerous disadvantages, and we're not referring to the moral implications here necessarily. In 1955, the Estonian doctor Vincent Sigas discovered a mysterious infectious disease in New Guinea. where anthropophagy was still practiced for ritual purposes. Many indigenous people fell ill with Kuru, shiver in their local language, with symptoms such as loss of balance, difficulty in movement, tremors. Soon, Ziggis realized that the disease was due to the custom of eating the brains of corpses. Mainly women and children were infected, while men who ate only the muscles of the dead were spared. The infection, similar to mad cow disease, is due to a prion, a protein, which, resisting gastric acidity, is transferred from one person to another via food. In 1956, the ritual was banned and the disease disappeared. Finally, last chapter number 15. The last cannibals. The last cannibals on the planet were called Kuru and live in New Guinea. There are no more than 2,500 and are divided into groups of 40-50 individuals. They sleep in huts built 20 meters above the ground in trees to be safer, as their existence is marked by constant feuds. Their diet is very low in meat and other animal proteins. According to DEPSOS, the local indigenous investigation agency, the Kuru eat almost everything, or ate. This population still lives with very few external contacts, and it is not known how extensive this ritual is. In any case, they're declared that their purpose is only ritual, that is to restore harmony and acquire the vital energy of mana, which is the great magical force that fills all things. With that being said, though, guys, we want to know what you actually think about all of what we have said. So please comment below, let me know what you actually think and what was the most surprising thing you have discovered in this video. Don't also forget to like, subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you can receive every new update. We'll talk some more next time. Bye!